Welcome back to the Mason Cox Show, the sporting segment. Plenty happening in the sporting segment today. We've got a fire at the Gabba looking to renovate for the Olympics starting this weekend. You got a scuffle at the MCG on and off the field. Yes, the fans are getting involved. And also have the top 5 moments from the weekend. Plenty happening on the pod this week. Settle in. It's going to be a big one. Starting now. All right, let's get into it. Big news this weekend, Braden. Welcome to the pod.
Wait on, I got the biggest news of all. Mason, no, don't drink all the beers. You got footy. See?
You can't say that. For the people out there listening, that is him having a beer, not me. But it is a zero alc beer, so maybe in the future, we are looking for a bit of a sponsor. So yours truly, come to us.
Happy record day, Mace.
I hate you.
All right, let's get into it, Mace. Let's put our head over the nut. We're going to go hard this week.
Yes.
Well, maybe not as hard as we went last week, because we started with Idiot of the Week, and now we've rebranded and we're going to Clanger of the Week.
We've had to go Clanger because for personal reasons, I kind of hope to be hired by these people eventually. So we had to kind of just downgrade it a little bit to Clanger of the Week, because for the Clanger of the Week, I have the AFL, and more specifically, the AFL timekeeper of the North Melbourne Fremantle game, because there was controversy written all over this one.
And let's get into it, because there's plenty to explain if you haven't seen it. So Fremantle were down by a point.
Yes.
They were doing all the attacking. They pump it in long. One of the North defenders gets it and clears it.
Yes.
Now the ball deliberately goes over the boundary. Now that's cut and dry.
Yeah.
But the whole thing was, did it go over before or after the siren?
Yes.
Now, the umpires on the ground said that the ball went out of bounds after the siren, thus ending the game, right?
Yep. Still called it deliberate, though, didn't they?
Still called it deliberate. So they ended the game over. Fox, analyzing it after the game, plays the vision about 1 million times with the audio so you can hear it. And it kind of sounds like the siren went after the ball had crossed the line. So it should have been a free kick for deliberate, because you can hear the umpires say, yep, call it, that's deliberate. So, okay, we're there, right? No, because AFL releases vision from the Arc.
Oh, the Arc. Oh, the miraculous Arc.
The state-of-the-art Arc that's got angles that we've never seen and audio that we've never seen, except it's exactly the same, just terrible quality, right? So they released this via the world's most, legit platform, Twitter.
Oh, we love Twitter.
And they released it 180p. The frame rate's all cooked, and the audio, the biggest thing is the audio's out of sync, right? Now, that's kind of important if you're saying this is the key evidence that proves that you were in the right and your call was correct. So the AFL comes out, says, our call was correct. The game should have ended because the ball went out of bounds after the siren, so our call is correct. Here's the vision that shows that. Anyway, case in point, all wrapped up, nice little bow, done, moving on. Except for what they release is, just borderline shambolic. And I don't want to use too hard a language here, because we got to walk this tightrope, right? But the audio's not in sync, and it's not in sync by a fair margin. Let's say a fair margin.
To have the ball go over the line, I think.
Okay, and what's a fair margin, you might ask? That's a fair question. So the sound of the ball hitting the defender's boot happens before the visual of the ball hitting the defender's boot.
So there's definitely discrepancy between the visual and the audio of the video.
Now, the only thing that can't happen is the sound of the ball hitting the boot happen before the visual. That's the only scenario that can't happen, because the most likely scenario is you see the video of the ball hitting the defender's boot, and then there's a delay before it hits the microphones of the broadcaster because they're a distance away. Sound traveling over distance. It takes time, Mace.
Physics.
So the sound can come after. It can come exactly in line if the broadcasters are fucking geniuses. But it can't come before. So the vision that is released with the audio, it's not in sync. It's kind of impossible. Now, I'm not saying that it's the AFL's doing anything untoward to prove their point or anything. I'm saying there's an issue that's happened along the way. It could be an encoding issue. It could be uploading to Twitter, which is an American account. And we do stuff in Australian frame rates and audio and all that technical mumbo jumbo. It's just a bit weird that the audio is before the kick.
I looked at it and I go, audio, bang, siren goes. Hold on. there's 2 seconds until the freaking North Melbourne players celebrate. I don't know about you, but after I hear the siren, hands go straight up in the air. I don't wait half a second to a second to go, oh man, nope, celebrate. Yay! No, that shit happens instantly. I feel bad for Freo fans because there wasn't a great game for them overall, don't get me wrong, but they should have at least had a chance to get some points out of that game.
And the other thing is, everyone on Twitter that's taken screenshots of the clock being at 0, that's completely irrelevant. That's a broadcast clock, which isn't in sync with anything. That's why they normally take the clock off with like 3 seconds to go, but they didn't in this circumstance. So that doesn't matter.
We got to also talk about this because it was a big game. Now, North Melbourne, like I said at the beginning, they're back. They're punching hard. And I think after the game, it was quite relevant that a lot of people probably took North Melbourne as being the wooden spooners of the year. Now, I think a lot of people are looking at that going, maybe not. Maybe they're actually contenders. 2-0, it's a good start.
It is. A lot of these teams that are showing really promising signs that maybe people written off, St. Kilda's another one, that, they're switching it up and playing this fast attacking pace of footy, and it's just overtaking some of the teams that are still stagnant or stuck on old game plans. Yep. So it's like, it's really interesting. And another one, I'm probably skipping a fair bit ahead here, but it's good to see some of these coaches come out, Ross Lyon and Alistair Clarkson come out and, the old dogs have still got some fight in them.
Still got a bit of bark in them. No doubt about that. Well, we will go to the next one, which is one of the biggest news stories from the weekend. And it was like, bang, the lights went off. No one knew what to do. The Gabba had caught on fire. Very interesting circumstances, no doubt. I don't think anyone knew how to handle it or what was going to happen. There's so many different ideas getting thrown out of whether the game was just going to be called at that point if they couldn't get the lights back on. It was just nuts up in Brisbane over the weekend.
It was very bizarre. Like, I don't know, and people are talking about there was like the game St. Kilda out at Waverley Park or whatever where the lights went off, and I think it was Malcolm Blight was up in the commentary box with a cigarette lighter doing his piece to camera, which is gold. So if it happened to you, Collingwood playing a night game, lights go off, and then you got told that you could have to wait up to an hour before you finish off the game, what would you be thinking?
Well, it kind of reminds me back to the fire alarm of last year. I don't know if you remember this.
True.
But they had the smoke alarm go off at the MCG and the game stopped and everyone's looking around like, what's going on? And then they talk about, the scoreboard catching on fire back in the day. And there's these kind of moments where something happens that's beyond control. No one knows how to handle. And that was what happened over the weekend in Brisbane at the Gabba. And I think as players, you just got to continually be ready to go because you already are behind on the scheduling. So you can imagine broadcasting and stuff, they're having to push other programs back because of it. So they're going to try to pump this thing out as soon as they can restart it. They're going to try to restart it right away. So you have to be ready to go and you continuously warm up. And the funny thing is over the weekend though, I remember hearing on the commentating, it was like, oh no, it's 30 minutes and they'll call the game if they can't get it back on. Then it was an hour and it was like, no one really kind of knew what the ruling was on section 12A of section 12 code of the AFL rules and who knows? Like it was scrambling to try to find that information that is never used. And I think as players, you just got to consistently be ready to go. And Brisbane, they went into the rooms. They probably sat down for a bit, not knowing if the game was going to be over or not, and came back out. And Melbourne made a run. Melbourne made a proper run and almost took a few points from them.
Which is another one of Chris Fagan's gripes. So apparently this is how it went. They both went down into the rooms, which we saw on the broadcast. But Brisbane got told to stay in the rooms, whereas it seems that Melbourne was allowed out to warm up on the field 5 minutes before Brisbane.
Yeah.
So normally it would be pretty hard to read into that, but when you're 40 points up and your team looks, stagnant and the other team is coming like a freight train after hardly kicking goals all night, it's a bit, I can see his argument that it was unfair.
You'd be very nervous because, you can say, coaches always look at those situations where, mentally you might switch off is like kind of what people will say, right? And the fact that they had those 5 minutes to be warmed up, ready to go and primed where Brisbane's just come out of the sheds and said, okay, I guess we'll just start back up. Like your mind's kind of thinking of the situation that's happening. This is kind of like a once in a lifetime maybe thing of the lights going out at the Gabba and like just kind of crazy chaos. And you're maybe not as focused on the actual task at hand, thinking, oh, we've already kind of got this game wrapped up. And yeah, I think they had that harsh reality where Melbourne was like, no, we're still a chance here. We're going to have to go at it. And luckily Brisbane, still was able to pull it back and win the game. But yeah, not a great look overall, and a lot of learning lessons. Let's just say that. A lot of things we learned over the weekend with the situation at the Gabba. And one of the things I learned, they're going to demolish that place pretty soon and start building a new joint. And I think this is the way the government's going to get popular opinion on board to get a new place at the Gabba.
Imagine if the Olympics were going on 100 meters final.
My gosh, can you fathom that? Oh, you would think they would have a backup generator for these things. You would think that they would be able to go, oh, something's happened. If one light goes out, the whole stadium doesn't go out. Just that one light bulb goes out. It was just wild to think it's all in one circuit. Like,
surely the ground manager's down at Bunnings this morning getting a generator.
Shitting himself last night, I'll tell you that.
If it was you, do you think you're 40 points up, right? Would you just want the game to be called off at that stage?
It's probably a time, depending on how much time elapses between. Like, if it's getting to 1 a.m. in the morning, it's like, dude, come on. You're 40 points up. I don't know I think it was third or fourth quarter, I want to say. And it's just getting to that point where I think there is obviously the rule in place for that happening. And there's so much more that goes on just beyond the game. You know, you talk about rights, like the whole reason we were able to pay for these kind of events and stuff is because of the TV rights and what they're pushing back, like I said. And there's a lot more to it than just the game of football, I think. But yeah, you have to have some point where you just cancel it. It's not like cricket. We can't play this forever.
Yeah, and one thing Jonathan Brown brought up on the Fox broadcast was the fact that sports betting, whatever you think of it, it invests a lot of money back into the AFL, and for the amount of odds and, you know, what is still live in the live betting, and to call it off throws that into shambles. There's no doubt in my mind that they were thinking about things like that.
Sportsbet.com.au is the AFL's protected partner for betting, and they won't allow anyone else, players included, to be sponsored by betting companies. So I'm sure they had a few phone calls with them to make sure that their odds were okay.
Geelong.
Hey, the Baggers, I'm telling you.
Favourites for the premiership. But Geelong starting 0-2. First time the Premiers have done it in a long, long time.
Yeah.
Should they be worried?
I don't think worried yet. They still got 21 games of the regular season left. There's plenty of football to be played. I think one thing I've come to realize is how important Tom Stewart is to their team. That man who really kind of was one of the leaders, I think, in the back line. He used to take mocks like crazy, and they would just release off that ability to take a mock. I think now they're trying to find who's going to fill that role for him, or if they're going to move things around to play differently. And they're trying to figure out what that kind of Goldilocks zone kind of area is going to be for them. And yeah, it's interesting. Like I said, it's only the third time Wooden Spoon starts 2-0, or North Melbourne Kangaroos start 2-0, and the Premiers start 0-2, which is pretty crazy. But yeah, I don't think it's panic mode. I don't think it's, press the big red button for Geelong and write them off yet, because they still have some absolute guns in their team. We'll talk about old Jezza Cameron later. But I think it's almost a compliment to Carlton. Carlton looked good. Carlton looked really good over the weekend.
So do you think it's more for Geelong? Do you think it's more of a personnel issue, like injuries, like they're missing half their back line? So do you think that's more of an issue than, premiership hangover or whatever people want to subscribe to?
No, I don't think it's a premiership hangover. I don't think it's that at all. I think it's, they've got a few injuries and they're trying to figure out what their best football is without these people playing. It's tough. Like, whenever you lose some big guys in your team, some leaders in your team, whatever it might be, you think like, oh, it's just one player, like you'll be okay. But if that player is literally setting up everything and holding everyone to account, then, you really lose direction in the team. So I think of them, it's trying to figure out, how they're going to play here going forward. And unfortunately, they had two very strong games to play against in the first two rounds.
And as for Carlton, they go on a dream run now. Like, they have a lot of those mid to lower tier teams coming up in a row. I don't know. It's still question marks for me over their late game fitness. At the end of last year, they weren't really running out games, and then you'd like to see them come out fit and firing. And then against Richmond, they kind of fell off and, got the draw in the end. And then this game again, they were well up and, they clawed it back again. So, but I don't think we'll probably get a chance to see that now, because they should be really putting these teams to the sword, and who knows, they might be 8-2 again, and then we get to see what happens from there.
I didn't say that. Well, we'll see. I think they'll have the first half of the season, I think they'll be very well set to have a solid back into the year. And like I said, I've said it once, I'll say it again. I think the Baggers are top 8 this year. I know it might hurt Collingwood fans to hear that, but I think Carlton will be top 8. And look, I can't imagine if a Carlton-Collingwood final game happens in the postseason. That would be insane.
Hey, some of those teams that are up the top end, all
That's
the big teams.
All the big kind of clubs that have the big games and stuff are up at the top of the ladder at the moment and going pretty well. So it's setting up for a juicy year. Some of the big games, you're talking about, like, Essendon is going pretty well at the moment, and Anzac Day coming around the corner. There's going to be some massive games this year between some of the bigger clubs, I think. We got Richmond on Friday, and that's going to be a big one too.
Now, speaking of Richmond, they went across to Adelaide and it was a nervous affair for them because, they were up by a fair margin, and then Adelaide come, romping back into it and took the lead for what felt like a microsecond before they absolutely got crushed. But they had the game the week before against GWS where it was like 30-something degrees. Both teams slugged it out. So you can kind of see why everyone on that team was cramping. Every week something happens when it comes to the MRO. And Nathan Broad had a sling tackle that really didn't look good.
Yeah.
Player got knocked out. It was out of bounds, so tackled inbounds to out of bounds, slammed the head. It didn't look good, and you could see on the mark straight away that he was like, damn it.
Yeah. Like, he knew there was a fine or a suspension coming. There's no doubt about that.
I think we're all in the same basket when it comes to the sling tackle. But are some of these circumstances really hard to avoid?
It's tough to think about because I always think about the tackle, the person that's actually making the tackle right. And like you're trying to bring a person to ground. And like if you don't want them to get the ball out. So you try to leverage your weight to get them to the ground. And some people overdo it. And that's where the sling actually comes in. But you can't just fall on top of them because then it's in the back. So I think there's a way people are shifting the weight and then it turns into a sling tackle. And you always try to get the arm under so that they can't get it out and things like that. And there was one in our game, obviously with Jamie Elliott too, that happened. And it's an interesting situation. I think the AFL, obviously with concussions, and this was a circumstance over the weekend, was they're going to take a very stern look at this and probably be very, very harsh on it, which is fair. The guy's got his head, he's got knocked out, essentially. So, you have to be able to look after the players. But yeah, it's a hard one to I guess adjudicate. I think as an umpire, you're going, okay, well, I want the game to continue to be live play, so I don't want to. I don't want to call a stoppage, but then the player's tackling also is well, I want a stoppage. So I'm trying to hold it in. So then there's this awkward moment between the umpire calling the whistle, saying it's a stoppage, and then also the player going, okay, I need to do more to make this a stoppage. And I think over the weekend he tackled him and he realized the boundary line was there and he saw it as kind of a second opportunity. He slung him over the line and that's what ended up happening. But yeah, it's never going to be perfect like anything in the IFL. It's going to be a tough thing to adjudicate from the IFL standpoint. I'm sure they'll be pretty harsh on Brody here, but it's not going to be the last time. I can guarantee you this year. Now, before we move on from the Adelaide-Richmond game, you lit up my phone on the weekend saying that you had a new favourite player. Pickett, I'm sorry, mate, but you got suspended, so I got to go for someone else. I will get back to you. You don't worry about that, Pickett. I'll get back to you, but over the weekend, Adelaide's Rochelle, by golly, this man loves a celebration. I'm a big fan of it. He gives the old 1-2, the old 1-2 punch after he kicks a goal, and he goes and slaps everyone's high five in the audience. The crowd's there. He just gets everyone involved, and I'm a big fan of this man. Old Rochelle. Rochelle. He's a big man. Big fan of this guy. And he makes people like me who are obnoxious prick whenever they kick a goal feel a lot more comfortable celebrating. I liked getting the crowd into it. Big fan of that. If you got a home game and you're trying to get back into the game, if you're a bit behind, go across, get them into it. They'll get more fired up. I really like that. The boxing one, I don't know where that came from, but I liked it too. He was hyped. After I saw it, I was hyped too. I don't watch many Adelaide games. Had you back at the drawing board going, geez, I got to up my game. It's the shame. It's not enough. It's not enough. Max Gawn. We've been talking about the Gawn-Grundy combo all year, all preseason, all off-season. Max Gawn is going to be out for 4 to 6 weeks with a medial injury, and he looked flat. And everyone, the whole footy community took a big sigh of relief when they realized it wasn't an ACL, it was a medial. So Grundy's going to have to cover the loss of Max Gawn, and they're going to have to find a second ruckman. How do you feel, or how do you see this playing out at Melbourne in terms of their ruck stocks? Oh, it's interesting because this was one of the biggest stories of the year was Grundy gone. And the fact that it's now going to be a 4 to 6 weeks to really see this kind of thing blossom is going to be frustrating for D's fans. There's no doubt about that. But yeah, Gawn, friendly fire on the weekend, just frustrating, I think, from his standpoint of, not really being something that you couldn't predict that to happen, It's just going to happen in the IFL. And there's the vision of him just looking really depressed, I guess, in the rooms. And I didn't like that because I feel like I know Gawn and I've met him over the years and stuff. And that's not really kind of the person. He'd have that moment of thinking like, oh, this sucks. But he would have been straight back out there supporting his team, being the captain of that club. And yeah, frustrating for him, no doubt. Like I can only imagine now he's going, oh, I wish I'd, obviously everyone wants to be playing out there. And after a loss like that against Brisbane, it'd be frustrating not to be able to lead your team back out for the next game to hopefully win. And it's a big ask for Grundy now, essentially replacing All-Australian ruckman with, well, another All-Australian ruckman. So it's a bit of an ask for Grundy. I'm sure like they kind of had this mentality before coming into the season that they're going to have some kind of shared responsibility in that ruck role, but now Brodie's going to have to really carry the heavy load of it. They've got other guys, you got Ben Brown, you got Tom McDonald will have to help out doing a bit of ruck work too. But yeah, it's like we talked about with Geelong. They're going to have to restructure things around to try to make them a better team and try to get through the next little bit until Gawn gets back.
Could you see it as a positive? Because Grundy's, now we all know we don't want to see Gawn injured in any way, shape or form. But Brodie's missed a lot of footy, like over the past couple of years. So could you see it as a good thing to get his fitness up early season? He's still an all-Australian ruckman. It's not the worst person to fall back on, but could you see it as a positive? Yeah,
look, I know Brodie Grundy pretty well, and I've had conversations with him, and he's told me over the offseason they were training like hell. Like it was insane. He said some of the hardest training he's ever had to do. So I've got no doubt Brodie Grundy's fit. There's no doubt about that because he's been in the system for a long time. If he's saying that, that means that he's done the work in the offseason. Yeah, I think it's a good way for him to kind of get his form back to know, like you said, he hasn't played footy in a while. So for him to be able to get back into it, playing AFL games, feeling like he can really get into that full-time ruck role, I think it would be good for him. And maybe it just gives him a bit more experience and opportunity in the ruck where Gawn might have come in and done a bit of backup ruck, but now it's going to really be heavy lifting for Brodie.
It's going to have some rolling effects because they'll have to bring probably Tom McDonald up from the forward line and then that shuffles that around and, a bit of chaos for him. Good, I reckon.
It's good, you reckon?
Yeah, figure it out.
I think Gawn's good for the game. I love Gawny. He's an absolute character of the game, and the game's better for him being in it. And we hope that he gets back and recovers well, and we see him back out there before Queen's birthday.
Moving on, the St Kilda Bulldogs team, because I don't know, I don't think a lot of people saw Saints doing what they're doing early, and likewise, I don't think many people saw the Dogs having the start that they had. So it was such an interesting game, and even more so to see Ross Lyon's game style be fast attacking footy.
Most laid-back man in the world is now playing fast footy, and we're a big fan of that. Ross Lyon, he's a bit of a character himself. Not gonna lie, I saw his pre-game presser. He's a pretty funny fella because he had spilt Coke all over the all over his like sheets and stat stuff, and had to like swipe it off with a piece of paper. Like,
wiping it onto the floor was
the
worse.
most Ross Lyon thing you'll ever see. I loved it though, and he owned up to it. He has a laugh about it, and I think it's good. He's good comedic value, and yeah, I always kind of thought he'd be playing a bit more of a conservative brand, but St Kilda's just gunning for it. Absolutely gunning for it.
One thing, watching Ross Lyon have the fun that he's having, I reckon the stint in the media did him absolute wonders. Because as much as you said that he was a, happy-go-lucky, stress-free guy, he was a pretty, brutal operator towards the media. So I think a little stint in there and realized that people have got to feed their families and, make money and stuff. And you got to answer these questions because he would have been asked some hard questions over his time in the media that he had to answer because that's your job. He spoke to Shane McInnes pre-game and they were laughing and stuff. Yeah. I swear he's having a few Cheech and Chongs in the car before he comes in. He's that relaxed.
First year as a coach, though, sometimes you got to realize first-year coach, there's not as much pressure as you probably think because it's like, everyone thinks
he's coached like a million games.
Yeah, but first year with a new team.
It's not even his first time with St Kilda. But when they're winning, that's when it's easy to be happy.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I want to get into this. It's a feel-good story. Love Ross. Ross is a legend. And Dan, we want to go into another opportunity to talk about something that I saw this week. And it's in the world sport. And I'm a big fan of the marathons. Love the marathons. I go to the New York City Marathon every single year. Love to support them. And there was someone who accomplished something just unfathomable. Like, it was amazing to see the vision of this. Now, the man is Alex Roca Campillo. I might be pronouncing that wrong, I'm not sure, but he has cerebral palsy and he's got a 76% disability and was able to finish a marathon. Absolute insanity. Like, the vision of this person being able to do this while having cerebral palsy is phenomenal and an absolute inspiration to anyone out there that thinks Oh, half marathon's tough. Try a marathon with 76% disability. Insane.
That's insane. I can't even fathom running a marathon full stop. So like,
it's crazy.
Yeah. Some people out there, they just do like the most inspirational stuff.
The mental capacity to fight through that and make it over the finish line, 42 kilometers, is just, I seriously don't even know how to put it into words.
Yeah. Yeah. You haven't run a marathon before?
No. I mean, I barely run 10Ks in a game, Braden. Like,
yeah. No. And good on Alex. It's
phenomenal. Phenomenal stuff. Inspirational. If you haven't seen it, I'm telling you, we'll put it up on the socials. It's pretty amazing, powerful stuff.
Now, I'll go in the other direction. Memphis women's basketball player Jemiah shoots, sucker punches, Bowls Green player in the face as Memphis loses the WNIT tournament. Jemiah was charged with assault. So all just dirty scenes. They're coming off, doing the handshakes. They're walking past each other. Words were shared and bang, punches her in the face. Now, this begs the question. It just popped into my mind straight away. When we see these incidents in sport, and in particular football, AFL, should it just automatically elevate to assault charges? When you see someone get punched in the face, should players be charged with assault if they punch other players in the head?
Yeah. It's why should it be treated any differently because it's on a football field? Like, an action is an action, whether it's in the sport or if it's, on the street. Doesn't matter. Like, you should definitely press charges on that because someone has reacted inappropriately and done something that can affect you for the rest of your life.
The Barry Hall one for me was just a straight up king hit to an unsuspected person. And it's watched by hundreds of thousands, if not like 1 million plus people are witnesses. All the people in the stadium, all the kids and families. We hold the people in the stands to a standard. They get banned for life for the MCG because they get on the piss and have a brawl.
I mean, it's even more public than the actual, something like this happening. Like, if you're doing it in sport, like, you're actually promoting that to a larger audience than doing it on the street. So, I don't know. The ramifications have to be steep for that player. There's no doubt. It reminds me, last year, Magic Doll essentially came up to me. It was a couple of years ago. Magic Doll came up to me in a VFL game and essentially swung at me from behind while I wasn't looking and bruised my trachea, and I couldn't talk for 3 weeks.
I remember that.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It was like during the COVID days, and like no charges were pressed. Nothing was done in that sense, but like it was definitely on purpose. There's no doubt about it.
Was anything asked of you for that? Like, was anyone come up to you and go like, would you like to press charges or anything like that?
No. They essentially the vision, I guess, got released somehow and someone found it, and then the club wasn't going to do anything until I guess the vision got released, and somehow Fox Footy or Tom Morris, something like that, got a hold of it and put it out there, and it's pretty ridiculous, to be honest. But yeah, it set me out 3 or 4 weeks. Couldn't play.
That's crazy. That is really crazy. Yeah, I forgot all about that incident, and that's pretty much dead on what we're talking about. So you should be able to ask the player if their welfare's okay and if they want to progress somewhere.
Yeah, I'll say this. He did text me after and apologized, but doesn't take back what he did.
Nah.
Like, I won't go further on that one, Braden.
Let's jump into your game, Collingwood v Port.
Yes.
You're giving us plenty for the podcast, which I really appreciate. So this week, and we had an influx of messages come through the Instagram. If you ever have questions, drop them in the DMs. We love it. You kicked the goal.
Yep.
And then you gave the shush.
Yes.
What's this, premeditated, or is it aimed at someone?
See, the thing is, I kicked the goal. There was someone talking trash behind me to my left. Now, whenever I kick a goal, right, I am zoned into that purpose of kicking a goal. I don't care who's in front of me, side of me, whatever it is, because no one can influx you or, I guess, like, get in your way of being able to kick that goal. So it's just like you, ball, sticks. That's all that matters. Nothing else can change, right? And someone was talking trash behind me to the left. I just hear gobble, gobble words, whatever it is, like, I don't know what it said. And I know it's trash talk because of who it is. And you wouldn't have your own players talking to you while you're like literally about to try to kick a goal.
I don't know if they know your set shot.
Oh, here we go.
You're pretty good. You're pretty good.
All right, yeah. As soon as I kicked the goal, I just kind of turned around, just faced him and just gave him the shh, as in, quiet down, mate. Quiet down. Also, though, I was kicking Port Adelaide side. So I will say that also can double up and go towards the Port Adelaide fans that were behind the goals. So that is the reason I shushed a home crowd.
Surely Port Adelaide fans, they wouldn't be giving you any stick or anything at all, would they?
Oh, of course not, Most fan bases love me, Braden.
Oh, my God. But saying that, and you're a versatile player. You get around.
Question marks.
You played ruck, you play forward, you play bench.
I love it. Bench is up there in your top 3.
On the weekend.
Yeah.
Big body spoil.
Came
across, all ball.
Yeah.
Really drilled the port bloke. Is that you thinking about moving down back more permanently or?
No chance. No chance in hell. My speed, not great. The only reason I was able to make it to there is because I was like exhausted from the previous play, and I was being a little bit lazy sitting behind the ball. He had to turn over, kicked it up in the air. And I was like, well, I guess I gotta get over this one. It just landed. It was that perfect time in the air where like he marks it right at the time you make contact kind of thing. And left him a bit bruised. I'm sure he's probably feeling it today, as I am for a few contests I was in. But yeah, I don't think I'll be going to the back line anytime soon. Every once in a while as a ruck, you like to make your appearance, maybe take a mock back there and say, boys, I gotcha. But that's not where you make the money. That's in the forward line. Forward line's where you get the bills.
You're like an old steam locomotive. You could see you building up pace as you loped across the midfield. But there was another incident. So you just build into incidents. You're like a magnet for incidents.
Plenty of content.
So on the wing, you got, I'm going to guess a free kick. You actually got some free kicks on the weekend.
Wild.
It was
absolutely absurd.
It was absolutely.
Never seen anything like it.
They'll be gone after we just talked all this shit about the AFL off the top.
That's it.
But so you get the free kick and the ball bobbles over the line. All your teammates just run off and don't throw you back the ball. And then what? You're in a stare down contest, you and Lysette?
We're in so the free kick's paid. The ball goes out of bounds behind Lysette, and I'm like 5 meters ready for someone to throw me the ball. You just kind of assume someone's going to pick up the ball and throw it to you, right? No one did. So the ball just sat there, and like Scott's sitting there. I'm sure the umpire's probably going to stand. So he's like, can't go get the ball. Umpire's told me stand. Otherwise, it's a 50-meter penalty. So he's just standing there. I'm looking at Scott. Then I look at the umpire. And the umpire looks at me. And I look back at Scott. I'm like, I guess I'll get it. Shit. I'll go pick it up. So I just kind of walk over there and like just casual. I think we're up by like a decent amount of points this time in the game. And
you weren't in a rush.
No, I was in zero rush whatsoever. And I remember just sitting there and Craig's talking to me as I'm walking up to the ball, telling me like where to kick it or something like that, and just pick it up and just waltz on back and then just turn the ball over on the next kick, I think. So that was good. But gave it a little bump tap.
Yeah,
gave a little bump tap on the way up to Scott, and I said, hey, great sportsmanship, mate. Appreciate that.
It was just keep an eye out for him because I know you're going to do something every time you touch the ball. But so you weren't the only one that had a good game. Every teammate, I feel like, on Collingwood had a good game. Let's jump into a couple of the players specifically. So I just love seeing Bobby Hill in the black and white stripes. He just is exciting. And you can never really, every time they think they're going to catch him with the ball, he just slams it on his boot and gets it forward.
Insane.
And then everyone swarms forward. So I want to ask you this. What was the better goal? Jamie Elliott to Bobby Hill? He does the 1-2, snaps the goal.
Quick snap, very hard.
Scott Pendlebury gets the McGrate's handball after he keeps it in over his head to Nick Dacos. Nick Dacos gets around a tackle, kicks it on the run, and celebrates before it even leaves his bootlaces.
Big fan of that.
Straight through. Which one's the better goal?
Love Nick's goal. Love Pendle's over the head 2 times. He's done it last week and he's done it this week.
That's all he can do.
And it leads to miraculous things both times. But I think Bobby's, like you said, I love Bobby in the forward line. He is just one of those players. As soon as he gets the ball, the crowd just goes, oh, snap. What's he going to do next? Like he's just an exciting player. You just never know what's going to happen whenever he gets the ball. And I think that's just something everyone looks forward to. But having zippy people like him, Jamie Elliott, everything else in the forward line, you just have that chaos that, you can kick a goal out of nothing. And that literally was, I think it was Bobby got it, handball to Jamie. Jamie gets tackled, handballs it back to Bobby. Someone just like literally throws it on his boot and it goes to the sticks. And I don't know if anyone's ever tried to do that, but there is a very low.
I tried to do it secretly.
Few brewskis for Braden in the podcast today. But throws it on his boot and it goes to, and it was phenomenal. Like I was sitting there on the bench going, that's something special. That's definitely something special. And I think both the goals amazing. Don't get me wrong, Nick's. I'm not downplaying it whatsoever. It did come out of a very weird situation where everyone thought the ball was out of bounds. Everyone just like stood around. And then Dan McGrate was just like, I guess we're still playing. All right, let me just handball this off. And we got a goal out of it. But yeah, I'd have to go with Bobby Dazzler. Bobby Dazzler's goal.
It is so cool seeing just the excitement up in the forward line, the pressure, seeing those two together. And then you got Bo McCreary roaming around. That guy's just like a shark. He just every time he's in I just hear dun dun because he's gonna get you. The 2-on-1 on the wing, tackles the first bloke, he falls over, tackles the second bloke, gets the ball, handballs it off, and then the next bloke stuffs it up.
3 tackles in like 30 seconds. I was like, that's 3 weeks worth of tackles for me, and he's done it in 30 seconds.
Yeah, he's a machine. So the Dacos brothers.
Yeah, big game of the weekend.
I feel like if Josh didn't have the last name Dacos, he'd be like, everyone would be talking about him as this superstar, but they put him in a line behind his dad, Peter, and Nick already. But he got 26, kicked 2. They combined, both Dacos brothers combined for 58 and 4.
Yeah, 4 goals, yeah.
It's insane. And they got to be the best brothers in the comp. Can you think of any other good brothers in the comp?
The only ones I think at the moment that could really stack up is the Mackay brothers. They're very, very good, but different players. I don't think they're getting the statistics that the Dacos brothers are at the moment, and they're a bit older than the Dacos boys, so they, don't have as many years ahead of them.
Like, had some time to cook.
Oh man, I think of it, and I was like 58 disposals, 4 goals. Yeah, thank heavens for the father-son rule.
I was thinking, Pete, it's not too late to have another run. You can have a third boy. He'll come through. You'll be all right.
Hey, have a girl even. We'll take him to AFLW.
It's so good to have that, that next elite talent coming through. And
it's great to see the younger generation stacking up to the older generation of guys on the team. Like to see players playing at that level and seeing guys that have been around for a long time like Pendles and being able to see them seamlessly working together. It's pretty special. Like you don't see that a lot of times. You'll see like the older guys, and they're just trying to bring along the younger guys, trying to bring them along, where whenever you have the younger guys stacking up to what some of the older guys are doing is something that doesn't happen very often.
All right, but it doesn't stop there because you've got an absolute banger coming up this Friday night against Richmond. 2 big teams going head to head. Richmond coming off a win. How do you see this one playing out? Because, geez, it's going to be exciting.
I thought last week was going to be a crazy game. Port Adelaide coming off a big win over Brisbane. Now, this Richmond game, Richmond-Collingwood always brings a big crowd. Always brings. I'm talking, there'd be 90,000 there, I reckon. And it's tough to explain to people what it feels like to be on the ground with 90,000 fans going off their head. Off their head. Because it's a big game. There's a bit of rivalry, you could say, between the two of us. Very similar game styles. The high-pressure teams love to kick some goals. And I think it's going to be one of the most entertaining games of the year, maybe. I will go out and make that statement early. This will be one of the most entertaining games of the year. Anyway, but yes, we will have a big blockbuster coming up on Friday under the lights. It's going to be a massive one. Big question marks around Dusty Martin at the moment. Might be injured. So
I thought you were going to say big question marks about the lights, if they'll stay on or not. But no, this isn't the Gabba. I think they were saying that they got scans on Dusty's hamstring, so that's touch and go. But I don't think you sub him out just to, watch him or whatever. But,
it's interesting though. Like a big game like this, do you risk him early in the season? Just because it's a big game? Because this is valued at the same amount of points as a week later.
Yeah, I think you just play it on its merits.
You try to play him because you have the big crowd, big supporters there, and they want to see an action-packed game?
It'll be a Collingwood home game. It'll be about 90,000 Pies supporters. You broke the record for a Collingwood Port game by 9,000. 60,000 on a Saturday arvo.
Wow, pretty good.
So the hunger's there to watch the Pies back in action, and this one will be an absolute barn burner.
It is going to be epic.
What's the next celebration?
I did whenever I kicked the goal over the weekend with Port Adelaide. I did this shh, and then Darcy Cameron came up to me and goes, "Where's the cat claws?"
The cat claws?
I did do it briefly. That was a bit of a joke with him.
Can we get an update on the cat claws?
Oh, yes. Update. Cat claws. I can confirm it was not cat claws. Which can also confirm that I'm a dumbass.
So good. When I found out that it wasn't cat claws, for sure.
For sure.
Oh.
Heard it.
I just held it in.
From the person.
I held it in.
Not the cat claws. Yours truly is a freaking idiot.
I held it in because everyone was like, mate, it's cat claws, it's cat claws. And then once I knew, I was like, just so happy.
Yeah, it wasn't cat claws. It was I think it was a can't hear you. Unfortunately for me, I've come out on the worst end of that one. But we're going to the last thing, the top 5 moments of the round. And I have to say, we've collaborated with AFL Central. Big fan of them. Check them out on the Instagram. But they have gone through with us, and we've put our top 5 moments of the weekend. We'll start off with number 5. What do you have?
So starting at number 5, Jeremy Cameron is the best player. I was going to say best forward, but I think he's just the best player to watch in the game.
Best player in the comp.
Like his goal kicking 100%. Is elite, gets up the ground, takes the marks, an amazing field kick, so mobile.
I think I saw him in the forward, back, in midfield. I don't know what position he was playing because I feel like I was like, oh, he's a forward. And the next thing I know, he's taking a mock in the D50 in the goal square. And I'm like, what is Jeremy Cameron doing there? I thought he was literally on the other side. Like, the man covers the whole damn field. I don't know how he does it.
6 goals, 25 touches, and he got all around the ground. It was nuts. He's got to get the 3 in a losing side, which is always incredible. Weird. But what do you have for number 4?
We've got Samson Ryan. He is back. He was absolutely crushing it for Richmond. Absolutely crushing it, the big fella. You know me, love a big forward.
I think we're excited. If you get up next to him on the weekend.
We'll see how tall he really is.
Number 3, hot pies at the MCG. Now, I loved this. Everyone was like, oh, they won so many close games last year. They're going to lose half of those and they're going to struggle this year. Well, they're just blowing contenders out of the water left, right, and center. So, it's exciting. Everyone's up and about. Now we just wait for Richmond. Just keep ticking them off the list.
That's it. It's still very early in the year. Don't
downplay my number 3.
We are excited. It is good times at the Collingwood Football Club with a few wins to start off the season. And we look to continue that momentum. This is about the most PC kind of way of doing it. But yeah, it's exciting times. And big game. Got to prove ourselves on the big stage in front of a big crowd.
Now, let me take number 2 because I want you to have number 1.
Yes. What do you have for number 2?
So I say the Young Guns. Okay, although everyone says, oh, he's the next Nick Dacos. He's the next Nick Dacos. Nick Dacos is Nick Dacos. So, and he's absolutely smashing the competition at the moment. But it's also good to see Ashcroft up at Brisbane absolutely dominating. He had a massive game on the weekend. And Sheezel for North getting across, getting plenty of touches. There's also a couple of other little ones. Like I saw Philippou for Saints on the weekend. He brought so much energy to the forward line, kicked 3 snaggles, and we love that. So I reckon number 2 is the Young Guns coming through the competition.
They are shining bright, the Young Guns. There's a bright future for the IFL there with these players coming through. And I'll take number 1. Big fan of this team. I said it before on the podcast, the North Melbourne Football Club is back. Back, baby. North Melbourne Football Club, the Shin Boners, 2-0 start. Ladies and gentlemen, take them serious. We might call them flag favorites. I don't know. The North Melbourne Football Club is showing everyone up at the moment. They're telling everyone who doubted them to get fucked. Alistair Clarkson has come in. Bit of drama in the preseason with him. They've come out just guns a-blaring. Got 2 wins. They've already matched their wins from last year. And I'm telling you, they're moving up. Why? Because that's the only direction they can go.
They got Nick Larkey just kicking them from everywhere. He's on, I think, 10 goals for the season. He's on track to kick 100 for the year.
So good. All these young guns just murdering people. It's awesome to see.
The best part from the weekend, obviously played Freo over in Perth. And when Clarko thought he had it in the bag, they cut to the camera down on the boundary. He's doing the double head and fist pump.
Fists.
That was before Freo started to come back. Now, if Freo had a 1 after the siren, that would have been slammed, that vision. So I'm guessing he was sweating. But it's good to see North up there. Kanga.
Roo.
Got him!
Is that it?
Yeah.
I know their stuff.
Yeah, you know their stuff.
But anyway, thanks so much, AFL Central. Check them out on their socials. Absolute legends. Thanks so much for being involved. Now, yes, Brayden, we're almost to the end of this, but I have to make a mention because there's some exciting news on the podcast coming up this week later. And unfortunately, no entertainment this week. Why is that? We've got a filler in. What's the filler in? Jack Crisp. Oh, it's going to be a crisp episode later in the week. On Wednesday afternoon, we're dropping Jack Crisp as our first interview of the week. It is a good one. It's an absolute dandy. Yes, you might be upset with all the news of Taylor Swift booking out the MCG, and I am too, don't get me wrong. But Jack Crisp is going to make up for it on Wednesday afternoon. Set your clocks. Subscribe, ladies and gentlemen. It is going to be a great chat with the great man, Crispy.
Back-to-back Copeland medalist.
Back. One of the most underrated players in the IFL, I think.
I don't know why they keep underrating him. What's he got to do?
Seriously, I don't know. Maybe kick more outside 50 old steak knives. I don't know. He's an absolute legend on and off the field. He's got plenty of stuff going on off the field also. So believe me, it's a jam-packed episode you do not want to miss.
All right, that's got to be it, right?
Everyone, thanks so much for listening in. See us on Wednesday afternoon, dropping the crispy episode. Check it out.
See ya.